It's probably wrong to believe that there can be any limit to the horror which the human mind can experience. On the contrary, it seems that some exponential effect begins to obtain as deeper and deeper darkness falls. As little as one may like to admit it, human experience tends, in a good many ways, to support the idea that when the nightmare grows black enough, horror spawns horror. One coincidental evil begets another, often more deliberate evils, until finally, blackness seems to cover everything. And the most terrifying question of all may be just how much horror the human mind can stand and still maintain a wakeful, staring, unrelenting sanity. Attention, boils and ghouls, and welcome to Dr. Meikenstein's Creature Feature Show. I am your host, your ghost host with the most, Dr. Meikenstein. Guys, I am super excited to talk about this. It seems like we have been talking about Fright Fest for months now, but here we are, ready to go. It is October the 1st. I am spooked, as you can tell. I am ready to go here, guys. It is very, very exciting stuff because I've wanted to talk about just horror so long on this channel. A huge horror fan. I just got kind of barraged down with the fancy stuff. But an entire month dedicated to just thrillers and horror and supernatural themes, I can't wait. So what this is, guys, is this is basically what I'm calling 16 Tales of Terror. I'll be doing 16 videos this month that are just horror related. Now, again, you'll have the little thing where people will be like, well, that's not actually horror. But you know what? That's where I'm going to put them. So I'll end that argument right there. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to announce that schedule, and I'm going to kind of give a quick little tease about what each story is about as we go forward, and just tell you when you should expect to see these on the channel in case you want to read any of them. Now, I do want to say up front, I'm not reading all of these this month, so there's no read-alongs or anything like that. There's only a couple on here that I'm actually reading this month, and I'll talk about those when I get to them. But again, guys, this is just if you want to read some of these before I do a review for them, this is the place to find out when you'll find that video. So here we go. Since October is kind of divided into 4 weeks here, if you don't count this, the first one, because tomorrow's Friday. What I'm going to do is I'm going to announce that week and then the 4 videos I plan to do that week. Each week I'll still be having a weekly update. Those obviously won't be just horror related, but I will be doing 4 individual videos per week about horror stories. And here we go, October the 4th through the 10th. These aren't in order, guys. They're just the week that I plan to do them. We'll be talking about The Hunger by Omakatsu, which is a take on the Donner Party. If you don't know the history of the Donner Party, it is about American pioneers who, go west, young man, and they got lost in the mountains of Nevada, and they got stuck there for the winter, and they had to resort to cannibalism. And she puts a nice little twist on it. So there is your little kicker there from the beginning. Also going to be doing a classic, Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. I reread this one in September. Really had good things to say about it, but again, I'll be talking about it in depth. I think Ray Bradbury is a brilliant writer, and this is a big reason why I read this one as a child, but it is very much about why people got scared of carnivals at a young age. So, yeah. What else? We'll be dealing with some HP. I'll be kicking it off that week with At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft. I think a very good introduction place for people looking to get into Lovecraft, and that is obviously, like most of his stories, travelers looking in unexplored territory, and maybe they find something that's a little tentacly, because there was lots of tentacles when it comes to Mr. H.P. It's very, very tentacly. And I'll be closing out that week with the first Why You Should Read for the month, which is going to be for Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles, namely the original trilogy before you start snickering at me. I'll definitely be just talking about the original trilogy and why I think that you should read it. And hey, maybe you want to keep going. That's okay. No judgment here. But I want to talk about some vampires that are kind of scary. You know, I feel like we've kind of gotten away from that. And that takes us for the week of October the 11th through the 17th. We'll be going back into the multiverse. This is part of my Into the Multiverse series. All my Stephen King stuff I'm doing in publication order. Just lined up right there. There are a few really hard horror ones, I think, that kind of go in with this. So I'm going to be doing Christine early in the month and maybe something else. We shall see if you don't know the story about this one. Killer Car. Killer Car has a life of its own. Possessed, maybe? Let's find out. We'll talk about Stephen King's Christine. I think one of his more underrated books, even by his own fandom. Again, we'll be sick of more H.P. Lovecraft. I'm going to be doing Dunwich Horror as well. Again, what really can you say about Lovecraft? It's just a tease, except that it's going to end in tentacles, probably. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be reading Clive Barker for the first time, really. Now, I say first time, but I've read The Hellbound Heart. But look, that's like a bathroom break book, right? That's something you're done with. I mean, look, it's huge print, too. It's huge. So I've always said, yeah, I haven't really read Clive Barker. So I'm going to be doing a video that's not quite why you should read, but it's why I decided to read, which is the partner series for that, which is where I talk about why I am going to go ahead and get into an author or a series that I've put off for a long time. And Clive Barker is going to be that in October. I don't have a physical copy on me, which breaks my heart a little bit, but I'll be dipping into another classic, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus, as it is more recognizably known. Again, if you don't know the story of Frankenstein by now, I don't think you've ever watched a movie or a cartoon in your life. So I think we all know what that's about, but I'm looking forward to talking about the original text because I think it's gotten quite misunderstood over time, because I hear so many people say things about, yeah, the movie's better, the book isn't really. No, the movie's pretty bad. But anyway, there might be one good one out there. I don't know, but we'll talk about it when we get to Frankenstein ending that week and as we move along here. For the week of October 18th to the 24th, what is the other half of Frankenstein? Well, it seems like you can't talk about Frankenstein without talking about some Dracula by Mr. Bram Stoker, arguably the most iconic horror figure of all time, Dracula. So how can we not talk about this amazing story that is 100 years old and still phenomenal? So we're going to talk about that. I might bring in a couple of other things that Bram Stoker's done. This depends on how ahead of myself I stay on this schedule, because it is going to be a heavy workload. Back into the multiverse again this month, guys, for Cycle of the Werewolf. Now, very, very short. This book's known more for its art than the actual story, but it's really cool in that it actually goes through the full moon cycle for this person that's turned to a werewolf, and it becomes like a murder mystery, and then you try to figure out if you can figure it out, you know? So again, a little different from most King stuff, but again, right in that popular time during the 80s where everything horror he touched was just gold, and we will talk about that. I'll say that you can probably read the book faster than I'll probably do that video. It's just a little guess there. Algernon Blackwood. I'm going to be talking about The Willows. The Willows apparently is the story that scared H.P. Lovecraft. So that's what got my attention. But look, when I was a kid, I found the woods very, very scary. So I think that this might actually ruffle some feathers. So we will talk about that, because it's just a 100-page short story. This is a whole collection of his stories. But again, anytime you get into those 100-year-old stories, I feel like they're able to hit horror in a way that's going to raise your eyebrows, maybe in a way that you're not expecting. So we will get into it. And then I'll be doing my last H.P. Lovecraft for the month as we talk about The Shadow of Innsmouth. So that's it, guys, for October 18th to the 24th. Let's move on to the week of Hallows Eve. And then for the week of Halloween itself, October the 25th through the 31st, gotta have us a haunted house story in here, right? So that means we're going to Amityville, right? No, we're going The Haunting of Hill House, the greatest female horror writer of all time, Shirley Jackson. This is a story I actually enjoyed more as an adult than I did as a kid, and we'll talk about why, because I think there's so many themes in here outside of just horror, but we're going to talk about them. This is a really, really spooky tale. If you've only watched the Netflix series, you've only seen half of the story. So again, I can't wait to talk to you guys about that. That's a quick read if you guys want to do that one. And you got until the end of the month, so I think you'll have plenty of time. I talked about Clive Barker earlier. This is the only one that I'm actually going to be reading this month for the first time, and that is Weave World. And I've gotten a lot of pushback already about, and that's actually fantasy. That's not horror. It's fantasy horror. Look, I don't do subgenres. It's either fantasy, it's horror, or it's sci-fi. So again, with me, if it's got horror in it, I'm going to stick with that. But I put this up to watchers to decide which one we were going to read for Clive Barker. And this is the one that they chose, so that's what we're going with. But there are a bunch of people on the Discord who are picking it up too, and they're going to read along with me. We're starting the second week of October, around the 8th or 9th or so. So if you guys want to jump on the Discord, the link is in the description below. You can join us and talk about all these stories. But if you want to read along with us, we will be starting Weave World around the 9th or the 10th or so, about a week from now. I don't have a particular story that I'm going to talk about here, but I'm going to talk about some of my favorite scary stories by Mr. Edgar Allan Poe, the master of macabre. This guy, I think that people kind of got run off by his stuff because they were forced to do stuff by him in high school. I talked about that in my classic video, or the classic books I love video. I wasn't like that. There's stuff that I was forced to read in high school that I ended up absolutely loving, and Poe is one of them. There's so much more to this guy than just The Raven, and we're going to be talking about all the stories, not The Raven, that I think that will really probably scare the pants off of you. And that one will be a fun video because, most poetry, it's only 6, 7, 8, 9 pages. So we'll be talking about more than just one story in that. And I can't wait to do that because I think that Poe is someone that people that were forced to do his stuff in high school just have not given a fair chance. And I'm going to try to change your mind. And then, of course, to wrap it up, we'll go into the multiverse one more time with, in my opinion, the scariest book that Stephen King has ever done. One that I've wanted to talk about in this channel for a long time, and that is Pet Sematary. Everyone knows this story by now, but they're going to hear me talk about it ad nauseum because I love this story. It is so dang good, so damn spooky. And guys, that is the schedule for Fright Fest 2020. 16 Tales of Terror. Did I call it 16 Tales of Horror earlier? I meant 16 Tales of Terror. I don't even know my own taglines for this stuff. But we might, if I have time, and it doesn't sound like I'm looking at the schedule here. That's 16 of the 31 days here I've got wrapped up with stuff, and then I got my 4 weekly updates. There's there are weekends and stuff I'd like to take days off, Anyway, I might throw in scary stories to tell in the dark, or I might throw in some of my favorite horror movies, Again, a month dedicated just to this genre that I don't feel like gets enough love, especially on BookTube. It is just straight fantasy or science fiction or YA fiction. It seems like on BookTube, I feel like horror is kind of the ugly duckling here. So this might be a bad idea for the algorithm on my channel, but you know what? I hope some of you guys will give some of these things a try, or at least listen to what I had to say about them, because I love the horror genre. I think it's greatly misunderstood. There is some really, really good writers out there who do not get the respect that they deserve just because they're writing horror. And I want to talk about a few that I love outside of just King and just Lovecraft. I want to talk about other writers too. So that's why we are doing this whole thing, and I am just excited by the feedback, the people that are into it. Again, if you want this whole list, I've got it in the description below. You don't want to go back and look at timestamps or anything like that. I will put it in the description below for you if you guys want to read any of these before I get to that particular video. So thank you guys for watching, and I cannot wait to hopefully scare you up this month of October. Fright Fest 2020 is underway, guys. I will talk to you next week as we kick things off.